Hello and welcome back to Northwestern Models TV, and today I'm going to show you how to build the N-Gauge version of the Ancorton Farm Cart kit. So I've done the 001, this is now the N-Gauge one, so it's a little bit smaller, so it's going to be a little bit more fiddly. Well, let's see how well it goes together. Right then, so as always, first task is to open the bag and see what we have inside. So we have a fret. Now you might think there's quite a lot of wheels on there, quite a lot of parts, and that's because this particular kit, they designed it so you can actually build two of the farm carts out of one kit. It is something that Ancorton do like to do occasionally, particularly for N-Gauge kits. So I'm only going to build up one for the sake of, I'm not building two. If I decide to build an N-Gauge layout, I may well build the other one and use it on there. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to build up one of these farm carts. So we also have obviously the sheet of instructions and the diagram picture to show us how it's supposed to look once we've finished it. So I'll have a quick scan through the instructions to see if there's any real difference between this one and the 00 gauge one, which I've recently built, so I've got a bit of an idea of how it goes together, and we'll then crack on with the build. Right, well, the kit is essentially exactly the same as the 00 one, but obviously this is N-Gauge, so it's a lot smaller, so it's going to be a lot more fiddly to do. So I'll build up the bottom one. So we need the main base, part, which is that one, and then we need the two side pieces to build the chassis up. Come out of there now. So I'm going to put that to one side. Right, this is small, so I'm hoping that you're going to be able to see this quite well. I'm just basically checking to see how well the bits are going to go together, and not looking too so bad. That one suits that way quite a bit better. So hopefully that one will go on there. So I've just noticed then that the lugs on the base are at slightly different lengths on the ends. So it's a case of trying to get the best fit you can for the various parts. Right. Now the glue we're going to use is the good old rocket car glue. Any videos that you've seen of ours, you'll know that we really like to use this glue because it's just really useful. And I think the end of it's a bit bunged up, so let's give that a bit of a clean out a minute, and then we can see about actually getting some glue out of it. Top tip, for little glue tips, make sure you clean them out with warm water between jobs. So you don't end up thinking, why is my glue not coming out? Right, let's start again. So, don't need a lot of glue because it's small pieces. And make sure you get your sides the way round that you want them. Now remember, this is going to be fiddly, and it's going to want to keep coming apart, so any sort of pressure you put on it is likely going to end up with it coming apart. So do just take your time with it. I'm just going to add an extra couple of bits of glue just to help hold that side in a bit more. whilst I then attempt to fit the other side. Right, and now I'm going to put that to one side. Just grab it with my tweezers so that the tweezers can hold it whilst it dries, so I'm not having to try and handle it too much, because it is very fiddly and very delicate. So obviously we're going to have a bit of time to let the glue dry on the various components before we start adding other bits and pieces to them. So whilst that main part of the chassis is drying, we can get on and build up the body of the cart, which is parts 1, 2, 5 and 6. So again, just very carefully cut them out, because obviously they are small and, as you've seen, quite delicate and fiddly. So that's the two sides. That's one end. That's the other end there. Like that. So, like I did with the 001, if you've seen that video, I'm going to assemble the sides like I would assemble a building. So I'm going to put the two corners together essentially, and then do the other two corners for the opposite side. So we then have two L shapes which we then put together, making sure we get the parts the right way up and the right way round. And then again, to leave them to one side to just dry off, because obviously we don't want to disturb them too much, because if we do that it's just going to keep falling apart. Now, whilst those bits are drying, we can get out some of the other components which we're going to need for the next bit. And the next bit actually is the shafts. Now, the shafts are the bits that go either side of the horse, so it's the bits that the bit that the horse actually holds onto or is strapped to through its harness and that, to actually pull the wagon along. Which are basically just two long pieces of wood, which is part 11. So, oh, that's a bit annoying. Right. Let's release that and put that the other way around. Because what we want to do with these shafts is to have them at the longest end from the axle. So the axle point is there, and this end is the longest point, so we want them on this end here. So to make it easier, I'm going to just glue, or put a reasonable bit of glue just at this end, and then bring the shafts in and get them sort of where we want them. And if we had a suitable N-gauge horse available, then I would of course use that to gauge the width required to allow them to fit that bit nicer. I think this is one of those moments where I think Might be just a little, perhaps a little too much glue on there, because these parts are very light, so there's no weight to them to sort of hold them down on any sort of movement, and they're just, as you can see, just flapping about a bit. So we'll get them near enough and then just stop playing with them. Right, that is as near as they're going to get. So before I make a mess of this, I think I'm going to leave them at that point. He says as he still continues to fiddle with them. Right, leave him at that. So hopefully you'll be able to see on the camera there that we've got the two shafts at this end here, which is where the horse, you know, would go in between. So obviously I've got to let the glue dry on those before we go any further with that. So whilst we're waiting, let's see if our side pieces are ready to be glued together to make a little box, which it looks like they are. And again, this is the joy of the Deluxe Materials Rocket Card Glue, is that it generally does dry fairly quickly. So you can get bits together quite happily, and it doesn't take too long for it to go off. You know, so you can work with it. You've got a bit of play time, but not a vast amount of play time. So that's our main body together. The chassis is pretty much together now as well. So the next part is to, well, it actually says is to glue part 10, the steps underneath. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't even see part 10. You can see the outline, it's a little U shape, but it is so fine that they're not really practical to fit, because they're just so fine, they're just going to get knocked off, lost, or they're just going to disintegrate as soon as I even attempt to put them on there. And we've seen how fiddly it was just to get the what do they call it, the shafts in place. So I'm going to skip putting those on, and we're going to move on to fitting the wheels. Now, with the wheels, we do actually have a number of hubs, which is part 12, which is these parts here. And again, they look so small, I cannot see the practicality of actually fitting them. I mean, obviously, if you wanted to have a go at fitting them, by all means, have a go. But I personally cannot see the practicality of attempting to fit them on there. So I think I will skip those bits, and we'll just get the axle on with the wheels onto the chassis, and then we can put the body on the chassis and it's essentially built. So, first things first, let's get the axle out, which is part 8. Right, this is where I need another set of tweezers, ideally. So what we're going to do is pull that back to there, and where the axle goes, there is a little cutout about there for the axle to sit into. So it actually drops into this one, we don't need to put it through anything, it's just got to sit in. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on in the place where it's supposed to go. too much. Ooh. Something to be careful of. Don't put too much pressure behind the glue. Right, and now I'm going to stick the axle in the middle as best we can. So that's on there. Just having a quick look, there we go, to see if I've got a bit of kitchen roll, just to get that bit of glue up before I stick something to it. Right, always handy to have a bit of kitchen roll available. You never know when you're going to need it. Right, so that's the axle on. Now comes the fun part of trying to get the wheels onto the axle. This is certainly going to be one of those easier said than done moments, I can just tell. So let's get the wheels out, let's do the easy bit first. So there we are, we've got our two wheels, and I'll put the rest of that to one side. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put a little bit of glue around the axle so that it has enough to grab the wheel. Trying to just burst a bubble there if it will, or not. Right. So there is actually a hole in the centre of the wheel, which is where the axle is supposed to slot on. I was going to say, if by some miracle you actually managed to get it to slot on, I would be very impressed. Because even if I take the axle off, you still can't get it on there. So, plan B. There's always a plan B. You've got a choice now, because we can either skip the axle and just glue the wheels in place, which is probably the most logical thing to do, or we attempt to drill out the centre of the wheels, which is a bit stupid really. So if you can get the wheels on the axle, by all means do so, but because it is so fine and that, it is just an impossibility really, realistically, to get the centre of the wheel, when I can grab hold of it, on to the axle, because it's just so small. You know, you're just not going to do it. You know what I mean? Really, you'd replace the axle with a bit of wire or something better than a piece of wood that's been laser cut. So have I got any wire? think I've got some brass wire to do the job. We've got enough, we've got a short one in there. Like most modelers, I've probably got a load of little bits and pieces I could use. So I've actually got some brass wire here, which I'm going to use for my axles. Now, we don't sell, at the moment, we don't sell brass wire, but now I'm seeing that this is a potential problem for this particular kit. I'm going to see about getting some, because as you can see now, I've got the wire and the wheel goes onto the wire a lot easier. So I'm going to use the wire as a replacement for the axle. So I'm just going to cut it slightly longer than it needs to be, but not massively too long. That's all right. Make sure I grab hold of it so we don't go flying across the room, never to be seen again. Right, so this is where I find out my glue's bunged up again. Could well be. Going to behave itself. There we go. So, blob of glue either side. Small set of pliers. Drop the axle into position. Now you might think, oh, it's brass, will the card glue hold it? Well, for what we want, yes, because we can fit the wheels to it, and the wheels will again hold or help to hold the brass in place. So that's one side. Do the same with the other side. So, as I said, if you wanted, you know, once you've fitted your wheels, like I've managed to get there, which if the camera decides to pick it up it might well do, but you can see there we've got, you know, the two wheels on there properly with that. So if you wanted to, you could attempt to fit the part number 12, which is the hubs, but like I said, they are so small and fiddly, like the steps for the stays, then you're just never gonna logically get them on there. And like I said, with that part 8, you know, as the axle, it's unless you can get the wheels easily onto it, a small piece of wire is going to be your best bet to do the job, so you've actually got half a chance of actually getting it together in the first place. So that's that axle thrown away because it's just of no real use. So all that's left now is to stick the body to the chassis. So let's pull my tweezers around that way. So we've got to make sure we get the body the right way around. which is, just quickly reading through the instructions again, with the straight end at the back of the cart. So it will go on like so. So I'm just going to glue the bottom of the body. That's a bit too much glue on me now. So just get rid of some of the excess glue off there. And just drop that into place, making sure that the straight piece is at the back. And there we go. Now, if you wanted, and I would actually advise this, once the body has sort of grabbed the base, I would be tempted to add an extra little bit of glue inside, even if it's just at the corners, just to help it all stick together and stay together. And that is, as you can see, a tiny little farm cart, and for comparison, that's the 001. So they both go together pretty much the same. So if you want a slightly clearer view of how it goes together, by all means have a check out of the 00 version, and yeah, have fun trying to put them two together. So there we go, that's how to put the N-Gauge Ancorton Farm Cart kit together. As you've seen, it's quite a fiddle, and with a little bit of modification to the kit, you can make it up really quite nicely. So all that's left for this one is for it to dry, and once the glue has properly dried, it can then be painted and sorted out so it's is suitable for exhibition use, because obviously for us it'll be being used as a small demonstration item, so it's going to be in and out, it's not going to be stuck on a layout, but I might glue it to a small piece of plastic card once I've got it all painted. So anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you have done, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Also make sure you hit that subscribe button as well, because it really does help the channel out. So I think that's everything, and until next time, happy modelling!